Good morning, and welcome to the second University of Chicago Community Summit. It's so great to have you all here. Last time we met in this very room, it was in the spring, and as some of you will recall, the sunlight was so intense, it was blinding. It was an absolutely glorious, beautiful, warm spring day. I know it's not the weather that brought you out this morning, so it's just so terrific that we had such a great turnout, actually more even than the first summit. So good to see the faces from the last meeting, great to see some new faces. I welcome you all. A special welcome to some of our elected officials, Barbara Flynn Curry, who's here. And Alderman Cochran, who's also here. It's good to be in your ward today, really. There's much underway in our offices and in yours, and it is our very firm belief that our success is directly related to our ability to listen and to learn from each other. The goal today is for us to provide a variety of updates on things that are going on at the university, of course, but also to hear back from you, things that you have going on in your worlds, and more about the partnerships that can grow out of those conversations. All of us in this room, no matter what we do, have a very, very deep stake in this wonderful and ambitious city, and in these neighborhoods in particular. Whether our expertise lies in the arts or education and health or sustainability and economic development or entrepreneurship, we are bound by a shared commitment to place and a belief that our skills in combination are better than our skills in isolation. I also know that many of us here have very strong thoughts about what defines success and how to get there, and that we are not always in agreement about the best paths forward. This is, well, we're close to Hyde Park right now, aren't we? There were examples of that this year in our community, and there will surely be others to come, but those passions are also a very powerful fuel and have been the source of much inspirational work this year. We are privileged to be a part of that work, and we look forward to many Decembers to come in which we can reflect back on our shared successes and look forward to the work ahead. One of the things we learned in our office this year is that there might be better ways of organizing these occasional summits, so they are most useful to you. And as a result of the great feedback you gave us in the spring, we've reorganized this morning to focus on a variety of smaller table discussions around real specific and discrete topics. So we hope that will enable people to go deeper into areas that they have particular interest in. I want to give very special thanks to the faculty and university and medical center staff who have dedicated their morning today enthusiastically volunteering their time to be here and talk with you about their work. I'm very, very grateful for their support. We look forward then to hearing brief reports from each of those discussions at the end of the morning. But before that, I wanted to share some quick updates, sort of a power update on about a dozen topics I will run through very quickly so you have a sense of some of the things going on in our office and in the university, that, particularly that relate and tie to urban issues and community. For those of you who have questions about anything I talk about, I will be here all morning. I'll be roaming between the tables and also here after the table discussions, and I'm very happy, as always, to discuss any of these things further. The first thing I wanted to talk about, mention, and there, I think we have at least 3 tables that have formed around this subject, so it seems like there's a lot of interest in the Woodlawn Children's Promise Zone. This is a very ambitious project that many of you are involved in. And some of you heard Bishop Brazier discuss this at President Zimmer's community reception last month. Across the university and its medical center, we are working in partnership with our neighbors in Woodlawn on the Promise Zone. This is a neighborhood-centric initiative to create a comprehensive set of social services and educational resources for all youth in Woodlawn and their families. Along with access to quality health care and safer streets, improving the academic performance of young people in Woodlawn in all of the schools from birth through college completion is at the core of the zone. Among the experiences which have greatly influenced our work are the Harlem Children's Zone, which I'm sure many of you have read about, heard about, maybe saw Jeffrey Canada on 60 Minutes recently. The university's own work in managing our 4 South Side charter schools, and the more than 20 years of research gathered on local schools by the university's consortium on Chicago school research. While we are clearly a junior partner in this initiative in Woodlawn, we look forward to assisting the community and schools in the creation of a model that could be replicated in any Chicago neighborhood. I would especially like to recognize Bishop Brazier and University Professor Charles Payne for their year-long work alongside many community members, including Alderman Cochran, parents, education leaders, faculty, physicians, administrators, and on and on. The Chicago Public Schools Administration has played a very helpful role in our thinking. And we hope that what we have at the end of this is a zone that is effective, sustainable, and very competitive, because the Obama administration is going to create federal funding for a range of initiatives like this across the country, and we will be applying to receive support for this work. There is much, much work left to be done, but we are grateful for the invitation of the Woodlawn community to assist in this groundbreaking initiative. Among other things, it presents us with the opportunity to think about scaling our own education work in the charter schools onto a larger canvas. Jeffrey Canada, the leader of the Harlem Project, said, to tackle only one issue while everything else in a child's universe is crumbling is a failed strategy. So this conveyor belt of services is really the approach that we're looking for here, and it is unique in our experience. Before moving on from education, I wanted to mention that our charter schools, which now serve over 1,500 children on 4 different Southside campuses, which represents a slight increase over last year and is on track to grow to 2,000 students. And also that our Woodlawn High School, just south of here, is preparing to graduate its very first class of seniors. A number of whom recently have already heard that they've received early college admissions, so we're very proud of them. Many of you will remember Shane Evans, the very dynamic young principal who spoke at the summit in the spring. He's the new director of the school, and he's launching a new mentoring program at the high school, which is an effort to provide a match with every single student in the senior class with an adult who can help guide the student in preparing college applications, submitting financial aid requests, making good selections from among the colleges to which they gain admission, and very importantly, continuing to do well in school until graduation, especially on their senior thesis projects. Those of you who'd like to be part of that mentoring project, we had a training workshop this week. We're sponsoring another one in January, and we'd really urge you to think about that if that's something you think you'd enjoy, because we could use the help. I should also mention that they fielded their first football team this year, which featured one of our young women students. I think they won a game, but it's they're starting. Wanted to quickly mention the Crime Lab, a second major urban initiative that has grown out of our faculty work right here at the SSA. It's in partnership with the City of Chicago and local nonprofits to launch a youth anti-violence program and research study exploring whether it is possible to prevent delinquency and violence by teaching youth self-regulation, social skills, and conflict resolution. The first effort in the Crime Lab initiative is called Becoming a Man, Sports Edition, an intervention with World Sports Chicago and youth guidance in 15 different Chicago schools across the city, assisting up to 550 students in this first iteration. It is only the beginning of an effort to work nationally with government, nonprofits, and faith-based organizations to use rigorous research methods in identifying the most promising ways of preventing violence and closely related social problems such as school dropout. Professor Jens Larson and other leaders of this project, I think I saw Professor Pollack walk in. There he is, also very involved in this, and I think we'll be talking about it this morning with the table back there. Intend to broadly share the results of this research with the community, hoping that rigorous evaluations, much like clinical trials in medicine, will help influence violence prevention programming so it can be absolutely as effective as possible. The work that Jens and Professor Pollack are doing is an excellent example of what SSA Dean Jean Marsh calls wielding partnerships instead of influence, which is a phrase I like very much. Quickly on Harper Court, as most of you know, the university and the city are in a partnership to redevelop Harper Court and help recreate a robust commercial heart for Hyde Park, and we hope a destination for the greater South Side and beyond. The process has yielded a number of exciting ideas for a mixed-use complex to occupy the site with offices, retail shops, a hotel, parking, and other public amenities. 11 development teams first stepped up to the initial solicitation. An evaluation committee of city and university officials is working diligently to evaluate a remaining group of 3 proposals. And while this evaluation has been ongoing for several months, we are being especially prudent and very careful about choosing a developer, knowing that this is a very challenged time economically, and that we need very strong assurances going in that the developer we choose will not merely start a project but complete this very important project. Alderman Preckwinkle and others, Mr. Males, who's here, through the TIF Council, been very diligent about moving this project forward and maintaining a high level of communication with constituents. The Alderman and we hope to bring you a further update early next year as this important project continues. The SECC. After a period of strategic planning, the Southeast Chicago Commission spent this year restructuring itself, its board, its mission, its geography, and will now largely focus on economic development issues in a broader area. We would like to thank everybody who participated in that process. Shirley Newsom, who's here, helped to lead it valiantly, and it took a long time and was very complex. We'd also especially like to acknowledge Bob Mason, the Commission's longstanding executive director, who was here for his many years of hard work and dedication. Importantly, a new board has been established to lead the Commission forward and make it an effective voice and stakeholder institution, not only in Hyde Park, but Woodlawn, North Kenwood, Oakland, and Washington Park as well. The board is currently conducting interviews for a new executive director and hopes to have a finalist very soon. The SECC has a long history of important work in our neighborhood, and I am very admiring of its diligence to examine its mission and makeup as it proceeds to relaunch itself. Quickly, the viaduct artwork at 53rd and 55th. I hope it's made for more pleasant commuting for all of you. It has for me. As part of the Lake Park Viaduct streetscape work, the university provided funding and helped plan for the creation of new artwork installed on the walls of the Metro underpasses at 53rd and 55th in Lake Park. This beautiful artwork, which was designed by a variety of local artists, Margaret Burroughs, John Himmelfarb, Calvin Jones, Terry Evans, took place through a selection process with our community partners, the Hyde Park Arts Center, Southside Community Arts Center, and Little Black Pearl. The art is complemented by a new structural lighting system as well, and sidewalks and embankment work. So hopefully it's a more inviting gateway to Hyde Park for commercial districts and residents alike. Washington Park and Garfield Boulevard. There was a corridor plan. There is a corridor plan being worked on during the summer. The University of 2008, the university purchased some property along Garfield Boulevard, something I'm sure many of you remember, in an effort to secure land to accommodate university growth in the decades to come, growth that of course comes with new programming and jobs. This past summer, the university participated in an economic development study focused on improving conditions along the Boulevard commercial corridor. The planning study, led by Alderman Cochran and Dowell in the city of Chicago, was inclusive of many community neighborhood stakeholders and identified a series of key nodes with suggestions for future land use along those nodes. The process was creative and rigorous, and there were many updates on the planning to the community from the alderman. We are happy to be a part of that study. My office participated fully in that, and we look forward to being a part of some early initiatives that are now under discussion to enhance the neighborhood with some sustainable development plans. The Hyde Park Alliance for Arts and Culture. and the Jazz Fest. Among our most valued partnerships are those we have with the rich group of arts and culture organizations in Hyde Park and throughout the city. The arts, as we all know, plays not only an important role in enhancing our quality of life, but also they foster economic development. This year we worked diligently to help bring about the birth of a dynamic and growing independent organization to focus on promoting Hyde Park as a cultural destination. The result was HYPA, a Hyde Park Arts and Cultural Alliance that is off to a truly amazing start. The university continues to provide seed money and staff to help during this critical developmental stage, and leaders of HYPA have done a great job securing additional sources of funding from its members, foundations, and corporations. Currently, HYPA has over 40 organizations, businesses, and resident members. Together with members of the university community and the Hyde Park Jazz Society, HYPA took the reins in planning for this year's Jazz Festival. The results were spectacular. Over 20,000 attendees, 15 hours, 13 venues, 150 musicians, rave reviews. Attendance represented a doubling of the attendance from last year's Jazz Fest. And planners are expecting that the tremendous success of this year's festival will create an even stronger audience for next fall. I'd particularly like to thank Irene Shear for all of the hard work she did toward that and in leading HYPA. It's been really a spectacular thing to watch. Thank you. The Logan Center, some of you will have the privilege of talking with Bill Michaels about that this morning. For others of you, in November, the university hosted an architectural unveiling for the new Logan Arts Center, an important new structure to be situated just a piece down the road here on the Midway. A state-of-the-art home for our faculty and students. The center will also open the creative and critical activity of the university to the neighborhood and the city truly as never before. The southern gateway between campus and community will be the entrance to a range of new collaborations, a crossroads where the public engages with distinguished local and international artists and scholars as they create, debate, exhibit, and perform. Bill Michael, as I said, will be talking about it more, and before too long, maybe we can have our summit there actually one day. I really look forward to having that open, and I've noticed that including that in our list today brought us some more participants from the arts community to this summit this morning. So thank you all for joining us today. The Career Pathways Initiative, launched in October of 2007, is a partnership with the University of Chicago Medical Center, and the city's Workforce Development Department, and the CARA program, an agency that provides intensive career development, training, and support to job seekers throughout the city. The initiative's success is largely the result of the power of these collaborations. To date, the Career Pathways Initiative has assisted 253 Mid-South Side residents, help them find quality employment opportunities. The initiative is committed to providing job search and quality job placement assistance to residents throughout the Mid-South Side, and I'm just very happy to report that along with doing that, they've adjusted really magnificently to the downturn in the economy, and so a lot of the work that they're now doing is helping people who are exiting from jobs think about the next chapter in their work lives. So we're very grateful for that partnership. I also wanted to mention a new project regarding lab school expansion. The University of Chicago Laboratory School is proposing an expansion of its existing education programs to add an additional 300 students, enhance and improve its existing campus, and construct a new early childhood center. The school will undertake a comprehensive program to renovate its existing buildings, which range in age from over 115 years to 25 years, by modernizing building infrastructure. Additionally, a new wing is proposed to accommodate additional student population growth. Another significant component to Lab's campus plan is this development of a state-of-the-art early childhood center for kids up to age grade 2, and would allow for the expansion of actually one of the most successful components of the Lab schools. It will also increase the opportunities for not just faculty children, but for neighborhood and city kids to have access to these programs. The dynamic project anticipates the creation of a new facility that's designed to incorporate all the most current and successful early childhood practices. Large open spaces, green space, and the extensive use of glass to create clear views to the outdoors and allow for natural sunlight, maybe something like what we're sitting in today. We've started a conversation with some community members in order to really do a much better job of capturing feedback as the university is thinking about these plans and to give us guidance on some of these ideas. An expanded public process will begin in earnest in the first quarter of 2010, but I just wanted to let you know that that is about to start. And I also wanted to mention the reason we have the couple computers sitting here is that today, this is actually the first group we're telling this to, we've launched a new website. One of the things I've heard in the year I've been here is that we do a really poor job of cataloging all the things the university does in connection with community and neighborhoods and communicating about that on a regular basis. So Michelle Olson, working with our colleagues in communications and NSIT, has prepared a really robust new website to talk about much of what you're going to hear about this morning, but on a more regular basis, so we don't have to wait every 6 months to hear about what's going on. Your engagement with this site is really going to be very, very important, and so we're looking for feedback from you starting even this morning. So for those of you who want to sit and take a ride through the site, please let us know this morning what you think of it. And also, if I could just mention, there are 2 new staff members in my department. Most of you have known them in other iterations, but I wanted to publicly welcome them today to this group. First is Devetta McKee, new director of the Office of Special Programs, College Prep, which is the longest running outreach effort at the University of Chicago. Devetta, who worked for OSP for most of the 1990s, has returned to take the helm of the organization after finishing 3 years as the Director of Special Initiatives at Prevention First. So, Devetta, I think you're here someplace. Would you stand up? And also Arnold Randall, a new director in my office who comes to us most recently from 2016, where he was Director of Legacy Projects. He previously, of course, was the planning commissioner for the city of Chicago and a leader at the Chicago Park District and many other things, a Woodlawn resident, as many of you know, and a friend to very many people in this room. So it's great to have Arnold back. And then lastly, speaking of 2016, I did want to say something about the Olympics. Yes, I've heard Chicago didn't get them. And for some in this room, that was a very great disappointment. For others, you could admit you were relieved. Of course, a selfish benefit for me is we got Arnold to the university. But whichever camp you fell into, I hope that you agree on the value of the incredible teamwork and planning that went into discussion about the possibility of the Summer Olympics here in 2016. And I think it brought all of us and many others together in ways that were new in the city and maybe new in these neighborhoods. And I've been thinking that if we let die some of the opportunities that we developed during those conversations, that's the real loss. It's not the one we suffered in Copenhagen, but it's the one we would suffer by not taking advantage of some truly incredible thinking that went on. I keep quoting my friend Eric Zorn, who wrote the day of the vote in Copenhagen, the Olympics may not be coming to Chicago, but 2016 is. So that's our time. These are our years to do with what we will. And I really just want to throw that out there and invite your thinking and your best thoughts about how we harness that energy and not let die some of those very best ideas and thinking. And so let's really keep a focus on that as we move forward. So now we're going to break into these discussions. I'm going to be visiting with a lot of these tables, hopefully all of them at some point. And then at the end of your discussions, we're going to ask somebody to get up from each of those and sort of talk for, very quickly, power updates from your tables on what you heard and what you learned this morning. And then I'll be back to close it out again. Thank you again for being here.
Discussion leader. I'd like to introduce myself, and then we'll introduce ourselves and say a word or two about.
These discussions were great. I got to most of the tables, although some were so crowded I could not find a place to wedge into the conversation. So, and I asked for permission to let you all get up and get another cup of coffee, but somebody said no, if I did, you would just keep talking. So we'll hold that for a minute. And just, again, we're going to go around the room quickly to leave you more time to converse at the end of this. But we really thought it'd be great to get some speedy reports from each table about what you heard and what you learned. And we proposed that we have two people from each table get up, one whoever led the discussion and one somebody from the community who participated in it. But if you guys want to just put one person forth from a table, that's fine too. We don't want to make this a forced march. So I told Ilsa I was going to start with the sustainability table, and when you get up, just make sure to introduce yourself. Your tables now know you well, but not everybody does.
I'm Ilsa Flanagan, Sustainability Director at the University. We had a very lively conversation on our table. It was a lot of fun. And we talked about lots of things. I'm going to have Adrian review those quickly with you. The one big message I heard was that there are lots of opportunities to collaborate in the community around sustainability, lots of interest, in particular in sharing what we're learning at the university in creating and launching our sustainability program. And I would welcome anyone to reach out to me if you have some ideas about how we can do that. I'd love to. And I'll hand over to Adrian.
Good morning. My name is Adrian Muhammad, and I'm a member of one of the local South Side committees on health and human services. This is what I learned. I learned today there's a strong desire for the greater Hyde Park and Woodlawn communities to synergize recycling and sustainability efforts, particularly in the areas of reducing waste in hospitals without compromising quality assurance, emphasizing sustainability endeavors in the younger generation, particularly starting in elementary schools all the way up to higher education. And I also learned about the need to upgrade older homes. I didn't think about that. They don't have water meters, and have them be a part of the endeavors to contribute to sustainability, and also about the importance of life cycle cost accounting. Thank you.
I'm Marcy Schlesinger. I was at one of the multiple tables about the Woodlawn Children's Promise Zone and their education programs. And what I heard at our table was very exciting ideas that are coming together through Bishop Brazier and Charles Payne and their organization and their hard work about focusing on education, improving all 9 schools in Woodlawn, creating parent involvement, community partnerships. Everyone in this room should sign up to be a tutor in Woodlawn. They want to have a tutor for every single child in the schools that needs it, starting with the most needy. There were people at our table who were offering ideas about getting after-school programs for science, for sports, and what can we do to create that. But very exciting to see this focus on this neighborhood, this building and thriving neighborhood, and focusing on the schools, and education is the most important part of it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christy Conklin. I'm actually from the Career Pathways Initiative. So we kind of talked about that initiative a little bit earlier. But I'm from the table that discussed economic development and neighborhood development inside of these communities. So because we were all incredibly excited about this specific area, we kind of broke down each particular community. So I won't go in depth on really what each community is doing to grow, but what we did is we focused on economic development in those areas. and how they're really growing. We did come up with some issues that we thought were really pertinent in order for us to continue those discussions with not just us, but with you guys. And so one of those things that we talked about was how economic development could grow in these areas where we see lots of vacant land, what we can do in order to ensure that that land is being used properly, that people will actually use those retail places, that they will come to those areas, and that can be people who are working inside the university, people who are living here, people who are students. We want to ensure that all of those people can use that growth and use it in a good way that also impacts the community in a very sustainable manner. We also kind of just discussed the different ways that communities could become involved. So we focused a lot on economic development, but there's also lots of different areas where we want to ensure that the residents who are residing here are actually using the community itself. So there's some different programs that are starting, like the open house program with the Architecture Foundation, so that way communities can really engage inside of their community and learn about the history. We also talked about the East Chicago Commission, which can add a focus on economic and retail development, but can use residents from this board or on a board, so that way they can actually have involvement in that process. And finally, we discussed the Big Academy, which is actually going to be opening in a baseball field. And so how we can really truly build leaders inside of these communities, so that way economic development is sustainable. So I know that was a lot, but thank you for bearing with me.
Good morning, my name is Michael Hodges, and I'm a probation officer for Cook County Juvenile Court. And at our table, which was Promised Neighborhoods, found that there's a lot of individuals that have hearts that set on helping our young people become well-rounded individuals and assets to our communities. And we were discussing how to make that happen. And one thing that we discovered, that there has been a disconnection with the Office of Juvenile Justice Division and the Department of Corrections, because there's a lot of family members that have family members incarcerated. There's a lot of individuals that are in the Juvenile Justice Division. And there's a lot of fathers that we need to reach out to and find out how to connect them back to their families, and we feel that in that way it will help the families become more well-rounded and more connected to what's happening with the community. One other major thing that we discussed is to not let money be the deciding factor on what we do. And sometimes we know that people are driven by money, but if our hearts go out to trying to help our neighborhoods become better neighborhoods, then we felt that money will come into place. A couple other things, we found that there's a lot of grassroots organizations and initiatives that's going on, and we're trying to find out how to connect those individuals that are doing some great things on the surface and help them become more connected to the neighborhoods and what is looking to be done. Also, how to get the students that are part of this campus specifically engaged in helping the neighborhoods become more safe and help the youth in the neighborhoods. And two other things, we're looking at how to involve the faith-based communities even more, because we know we have a number of churches in this area as well as throughout all of the City of Chicago communities. And a lot of them are doing individual things, and sometimes it's difficult to get the leaders of these faith-based communities together in order to have any type of roundtable discussion or whatever, to see how the things that they're doing individually can be brought together. And we believe that more collectively, it will be better served than what is being done individually. And lastly, but not leastly, remembering to keep the youth involved, make the youth a part of what we're talking about, because a lot of times our youth seem to be overlooked. And I know I've worked with them for 22 years, and oftentimes when we come with different initiatives and programs for them, sometimes they reject it because they don't feel like they were a part of what is trying to be done. So they want to be a part the development of the different things that we're discussing. So then when the solutions come up, they can feel more engaged in what's going on. So that's some of the things that we discussed, and we're looking forward to doing some more things because I think that this is a great initiative that we have.
Hello, my name is Hans Telenius. I'm with W.E. O'Neill Construction. We're one of the vendors providing services to the university. The topic at our table was doing business with the university. How does one do business? And what we learned at our table was a group of current vendors that wanted to be there, and the Office of Business Diversity. We found that the university procurement process is a very decentralized process. We found that there are 11 procurement centers within the university. So when a vendor comes in, it can be very overwhelming how to get to all 11, centers. The Office of Business Diversity is more or less the gatekeeper to try and match a vendor's talents to the needs of the university. And we learned that there are, 3 or 4 key people within the Office of Diversity that vendors need to reach out to. We also learned that there are Chamber of Commerce groups that probably represent 200 to 300 local businesses that now have a vehicle to get to the community, and there was talk about putting some outside forums together for some quick networking so the business can learn the university's needs. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Harold Pollack. I teach here at SSA, and I'm the co-director of the Crime Lab. And not surprisingly, we spend a lot of our time at our table discussing various issues of crime and how to help youth achieve positive development and deal more successfully in the difficult environment that they're in. And we talked about some of the challenges of working within schools to help to change that. And Alice was our note taker, and I'll let her summarize some of the points that we made.
Okay, as I said, we focused a lot on school programs and the problem of violence in school. I mean, our charge was Promise Neighborhoods, Education, Youth Development, Safety, and Community Engagement. We focused a lot on the education and safety issues because for a lot of these kids, it's that window of opportunity. And what we focused on is, okay, promises, missed opportunities, and promises to be fulfilled a lot. The programs that Professor Pollack mentioned many of them are in their initial phases. And there's a problem of disconnect between the university and what it has to offer and actually getting out into the schools and making things work. There's a lot of, it's uneven, and it's uneven in many places. Programs will be put into schools, dropped into schools, they'll work, they'll pull out maybe the best students and give them an opportunity. But then at the end of the day, the program gets defunded, it gets, whatever. And the teachers in the school haven't had the buy-in, and so things sort of fall apart for the next group of students. For these students, a couple years is a lifetime in terms of their trajectory. And the problem is not so much that there is a lack of programs, it's that there's uncoordinated, there's mismatches. The places that need it the most, that are the most unstable, the most violent, are in some ways too disorganized to absorb the programs that are needed there. So we really have our work cut out for us. There's a number of interesting programs that were mentioned. There's an evaluation toolkit that we'd love to see distributed more to people, so to programs that are out there doing the schoolwork, so they can essentially roll their own in terms of evaluating their own programs. But that's the thing, is how to match these programs to the needs and do it in a way that will help kids now, because there's large structural issues out there like employment, adult employment, but then it's like, what can we do now? and a lot of follow-up.
Hi, everybody. I'm Irene Scher with the Hyde Park Alliance for Arts and Culture, and
I am Davin Peely with Chicago Children's Choir.
And we were at the Arts Partnerships table, and we had a very wide-ranging discussion, but I think it boils down to a couple things in terms of collaborations and partnerships. One is access. We all shared an interest in making Hyde Park accessible and easy to get to. We need signage. We need a welcoming message when people approach our gateways. Then cultural organizations, once you've got the access, you need to engage your audience or the people that you're trying to get and give them a meaningful experience. And we all talked about that. Don't assume people know who you are. And then the last thing was the access and the engagement can lead to audience development for the individual institutions or the businesses. And then the one I think most notable topic or piece of information that I was able to give the group was that there is free parking at the university after 4 and on weekends in all university parking lots.
And our discussion around surrounding partnerships, we also talked about working outside of the Hyde Park neighborhood, in particular in building awareness of the ease of transportation to get to Hyde Park, partnering with the Office of Tourism. The Office of Tourism is actually doing a big push about exploring Chicago's neighborhoods, not just to visitors from international and national destinations, but also visitors from throughout Chicago, going from neighborhood to neighborhood, because that's a tourism that isn't as affected by the economy and happens year-round. So we talked about working with tourism to promote awareness of transportation. We also talked about how arts organizations have partnerships based on the genre and discipline of art that they are in throughout the city, and to partner with those organizations to bring Hyde Park culture to the other neighborhoods, building awareness of what Hyde Park has to offer, and also encouraging Hyde Parkers to explore other neighborhoods culturally, because that is the only way that we can have true exchange and bringing other neighborhoods into Hyde Park as well.
Check out the Office of Civic Engagement's website, and if you do the feedback survey, you can get a free Hyde Park Jazz Festival CD.
Hello, my name is Bill Michael, and I, as of January 1st, will be the Executive Director of the Reva and David Logan Center for Creative and Performing Arts. And I'm going to turn this over to my colleague David Hayes to talk about what we talked about, but really want to echo what Anne-Marie said, which is that we really do have big dreams and hopes that the Logan Center is going to be a wonderful connecting point between the university and the community, and I look forward to working with all of you over the next several years to make sure that we realize those dreams in the ways that we can talk about now as we get ready to put a shovel in the ground, so that when the building opens in spring of 2012, it can be a vibrant hub of the arts, both on campus and create the kind of connections and creativity across the community that we all hope for. And with that said, I'll turn over to David to talk what we talked about.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I want to apologize to my colleagues at the table. I'm not going to capture everything that we said, so bear with me in that regard. What I heard, the Logan Center is going to be an incredible, amazing space. Lots of incredible windows, 11 stories tall, is that right? Between 60th and 61st Street. An incredible amount of open performance, inviting space to the community and embracing sort of all the arts. So that Bill talked about this as a center that makes connections. The primary audience is definitely students, faculty, and staff within the university, but there's a recognition among the people who are involved with and engaged with the project that the way that that is going to work, or the way that it needs to work, is by reaching out to and working with the partners that are in the surrounding neighborhoods, as well as the partners that are on campus. The center itself is aiming to be LEED certified, figuring out how to make sure that happens. Within our conversation, I learned that there's an incredible amount of opportunity as this center is being developed, but also a lot of excitement, I think, among the people around our table. At the same time, this kind of bringing together of all the arts on campus in a space, as well as bringing in arts from the city, takes an enormous amount of coordination. So there's still a lot of work to be done in figuring out the details of how do we manage space and things like that. But there's a lot of things that are in the works and a lot of excitement around it. I think the way that, for me, I sort of synthesize how we describe this center as a portal or a conduit or a catalyst for the kinds of connections both on campus but definitely between the campus and the community.
So I will just add, if you want to learn more, not only about the Logan Center, but about all the ways that we're thinking about the arts at campus, please visit arts.uchicago.edu. Thanks.
All right, we're here representing the entrepreneurship table. My name is Jonathan Allen. I work at the Polsky Center at Chicago booth. Part of our goal being here is to learn about how we can reach out to the community. I think Mike Davis said it best when he gave the quote to keep doing what you're doing and keep getting what you got. I think that that's a really interesting concept, and the ability and willingness to evolve and change a concept that worked in the past and make it work for the future. So I think we're trying to do that ourselves. And how do you do that in entrepreneurship? And I think the biggest takeaway for me is that we have unbelievable business know-how and entrepreneurial spirit in Hyde Park. You can see it all over the place. And I just turned it over to my table because they have such great business experience that if you're really interested in learning something about business and how to really do something, come talk to people at our table. Derek is a budding entrepreneur at our table, and so he has some takeaways from our discussion.
Okay, Frederick Berry, sorry about that. I like it from up here. This is a good look. I like this. I can do this all day. I'm going to give you some of the 7 core things that we learned at our table today. I am a new business owner myself, CEO of DNF Transportation Services. But here are the 7 core things that we learned. We learned much more than this. I'm just giving you all 7. Be courageous and be willing to change the concept of your business for your customers. Reinvent yourself and play outside your comfort zone. Have continuity within the business. Business associations should fund other business within that business association if there are funding issues happening. Look at your business long-term for the next generation of the business and connect early on in the process with the inheritors of the business. So we were talking a little bit about how you're a business owner and your child may not want to be a part of that business. You have to start early with them so they can kind of buy into the process before they want to build their own careers. And you guys are laughing back there. Maybe that's happened with you as well. Stay in the fight long-term for your business and also pitch a unique business proposition as well. Okay, thank you.
Is it still morning? Good afternoon. So I'm Shartae Robinson. I'm with the Institute for Translational Medicine here at the University of Chicago. And I had the honor of being at the table where we discussed what's the role of research in improving health outcomes. What we heard was that, and it seems like there's an underlining theme that there are resources at the University of Chicago, however, the community is not made aware of them. So we had individuals who represented community-based organizations that were specific to domestic violence and mental health. And then we also had a person who went to the streets where research was concerned and went where the people were with a mobile research vehicle. So what we heard was that there are opportunities for medical students, for faculty, for researchers internally to partner with community-based organizations that we can then help them with funding if they're submitting funding or information to large organizations, that we have the expertise right here, right now, in order to support those. So although it's a discussion about research, the key thing is before we get to research that we must leverage the internal resources we have and match them with the community so that they can be viable organizations that then can provide the resources to the people that we ultimately want to touch. So Dr. Dorian Miller, she said something that was very key for right now, and is data for action, not research. And so sometimes when faculty and researchers go out to the community, and I'm not saying the University of Chicago, I'm just saying faculty and researchers, we go out and we get the data, we discuss whatever the initiative is with the community, and then we retreat to the wonderful academic medical center in which we all work or have an affiliation with. So we don't share the information that we've gained, right? So when we don't share the information, then people are less trusting to participate in future initiatives and so forth and so on. So establishing trust is key. So if we're going to address the immediate health outcomes or future health outcomes, and then also partnering with organizations so that they can be sustainable as we move forward. So they can call us when they're in need, but then we can also call them and they'll answer when we're in need. So where research is concerned, we know we have to build this bridge from community to academia to so forth and so on, so that this entire collaboration. So I'll say this and then I'll let Leah talk. So also, what we also heard was that Dr. Stacy Lindow and Dorian Miller, they discussed our mapping project, which identify all organizations within a specific neighborhood. Well, that's helpful for an organization who says that on the south side of Chicago, in the Inglewood community, I need to know how many resources are available for women who are being affected, not just women, right? But individuals who are being affected with domestic violence, right? So this mapping project can definitely support their initiative when they're moving forward with identifying funding for their initiative. So I wanted Leah to speak on what she learned and what she heard. But I think, from an academic perspective, we all learn from one another, and we're never too great to sit at a table and then learn from one another the experiences that we can all share.
Hi, how are you? I'm Leah Kirby. I'm the Executive Director of SARF, Serving At-Risk Families, formerly known as today's Single Parent Domestic Violence Programs. Our program did not basically focus on victims. We were focusing on perpetrators. So now we have a collaborative effort and a more comprehensive program in preserving families. And we're basically based in the South Shore area. And of course, this year was a very hard year for us, and we needed to extend statistical research, but we didn't have the capacity to do the actual research for the larger agency funding that was available. So it was an excellent opportunity for us to collaborate with University of Chicago and their professionals and the programs that they had available to assist us in providing research so we can have larger funding from the larger funding agencies to better serve our communities. So it was an excellent opportunity. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Laura Dirks. I'm the director of the Southside Healthcare Collaborative, which if you have more time, you can get some of the details over there with our large booth that we've got. We have lots of materials that you can take home. We had a great conversation. I'm going to leave most of the highlights to my colleague, Leon, who's a real estate developer.
Good morning, everyone. Leon Walker, principal at Urban Medical Centers Fund. We focus on providing capital and access to safety net hospitals and FQHCs on the south side and the greater Midwest, building facilities for them, managing buildings. One of the things we first had to deal with was, why was our table so light? Everyone else was crowded over on this side of the room, and we started to look at it and said, well, our tag says access to a medical home. And we thought maybe everyone was thinking that was a nursing home or some other kind of home that no one wanted access to. But it's kind of was a jumping off point for us in discussing what really is going on in the medical care debate and obviously access to medical care. There's a lot of misunderstanding about the terminology, and that can sometimes inhibit the discussion. So we talked a lot about why are people not understanding what a medical home is and how important it is to have preventative measures taken in your life, like you do with your car. You take your car in every 3,000 miles for an oil change, but we certainly don't go into the doctor and provide that historical record of our health so that they can better serve us. After that, we started talking about, well, if people really have misunderstandings about healthcare and how to access it and so forth, what are some of the other confounding factors? And some of those people just have bad history with healthcare providers. There's a legacy element to it. People have gone into hospitals and and been treated poorly, had poor patient experiences. They feel uncomfortable there. That seems to be a big part of it. And then we moved, say, okay, well, we have all these issues that are really impacting, why people are not going on a regular basis into a particular healthcare environment. How can we improve that? And that's what the Urban Health Initiative is about. That's what the University of Chicago is really trying to lead an effort on. And we started looking at it and said, well, there are access points out in the community. But unfortunately, those do not have necessarily the best viewpoint, or they're not viewed as positively from the community. They are ghetto clinics, was one term that came up. And none of us would want to go to anything that was called a ghetto clinic. So we started saying, well, how do we unpack that and really understand what that means? And it came down to, well, there's a branding issue. There's some really basic business principles that we must apply to healthcare as we do to other industries. And it got to a point where we said, well, the University of Chicago has invested a lot of money and time over the years into their brand. And we all believe that the University of Chicago does an outstanding job of providing healthcare. So why wouldn't that also apply to others that live in the community? They would want to come to get the best service possible. And if we're going to direct them or refer them to other kinds of providers, there's a quality gap that's there, that's perceived that's there. And so we really got into a discussion of talking about how do you begin to help these upstarts, if you will, these smaller organizations that lack brand, the halo effect of a University of Chicago, to go out and attract new patients and bring people into the system. And that was lively for a while, and we came up with some thoughts and ideas. One of the things centered around looking at a successful grocery store operator on the south side of Chicago by the name of Aldi. And I don't know if many of you have heard of Aldi, but in my travels around the south side, I'm actually running into more and more people who higher and higher up the income ladder who now say that I've shopped at Aldi. Surprise, surprise, you used to have to wear a cap and a trench coat before you go to Aldi, and now, more and more people are going to Aldi. And why is that? The experience that you're having at Aldi is much better. It's a much cleaner, nicer store. They're providing organics, and all these other kinds of things that make it more attractive to folks. So we started talking about, there has to be some capacity building that goes on in terms of the FQHCs and other smaller healthcare providers in the community. And also making sure that they focus on their patient experiences. Every major hospital focuses on the patient experience. They want to know what happens to you when you park in the parking garage, you walk across the street, you come into the admitting area. They want to track that entire patient experience all the way actually after the visit and through recovery. We're not seeing that level of focus with the small community providers, and so there needs to be some work done there. Importantly, start thinking about, okay, once they've worked on their own sort of capacity and their presentation, their patient experience, you still have to get people there. It's like having writing a great book that no one knows about. So, how do we do that? And we started focusing on some of the influencers that operate in everyone's lives, actually. We all, can't research everything that we want to buy or access in our own lives, and we rely on people that or institutions that we're affiliated with to give us good advice. And so we started talking about how the health ministries at churches can be an important affiliate and an important partner in referring people to these community providers. We started talking about other sort of innovative ways, that a good brands that exist in the community can be partnered with, whether they're grocery stores or others. And finally, we ended up talking about a sort of really innovative concept of how we can co-locate some of these services together and create a healthy lifestyle community. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mark Petrie. I'm from Argonne National Laboratory. If you're not familiar with Argonne, it's a Department of Energy laboratory that's just down the road from here near suburban Lamont and Darien. We are run by the Department of Energy, and we're a multidisciplinary organization that works on the full range of science and technology applications, energy research, transportation research, basic science, and we're an incredible resource for the Chicago area. We've been affiliated with the University of Chicago for 63 years, and over the past few years we've been growing in our interdisciplinary work with the university on advanced research topics. But we're probably an underutilized resource when it comes to the Chicago community. We think that we have resources that could really help with community development, with educational opportunities for students, and so I'd encourage you to pick up some of the brochure material that I left at the table. I think we had a small group but a lively group, and it focused on the research that we're doing together with the University of Chicago on climate change, understanding that and understanding what the implications may be for society and for economics. But I'm going to let Anton talk more about that.
Good morning. My name is Anton Seals, Jr. I'm here with, on behalf of Congressman Rush's office, 1st Congressional District. And so what did we learn today? We learned quite a bit, I think, at our table. Even though we were a small number, we were mighty in thought. So there's a couple things that you guys should know. As Mark just said, Oregon is underutilized, and we have some phenomenal and fascinating work happening here in this region, in particular with the University of Chicago and with Oregon. So what we basically walked away from today, from this table, was the thing that sticks out in my mind is this CIM Earth model that the university, through the Energy Initiative, is doing, which will help us kind of understand how economics and climate change are impacting one another. So this is a very important thing that as we are trying to come up with an energy policy for our country, we would need this kind of research and modeling. Also, the main thing that they're doing in Oregon, they're doing 5 things, but the thing that stuck out to me was this whole idea of energy storage, which is around batteries and basically the 21st century energy consumption is being dealt with here in our region. So I would encourage you, I'm gonna do 2 things as I kind of wrap up since we're at the tail end, is to go to these 2 websites, anl.gov, which is the Oregon National Laboratory, and cimearth.org. And I think that you can kind of peruse through there and kind of get an idea of some of the things that we heard about today. And I hope everyone walked away as informed as I did. Thank you, guys.
Good morning. I'm Marlon Lynch, Associate Vice President for Safety and Security and Chief of Police here at the university. Somehow our table left after the discussion turned to outstanding arrest warrants. But at any rate, Adina stuck around to share with you what we discussed about what the Department of Safety and Security consists of and the services we provide to the university and our neighboring communities.
I satisfied all my arrest warrants, so I was able to stay. One of the things, obviously, that we talked about is public safety. We know that safety is just a basic need, and we talked about some of the movements that the university is doing to improve community safety and become more of a visible community partner and not just be seen as sort of an extension of the Chicago Police Department. We talked about the aspect of community growth and development because we know that we can have all these amazing programs and services going on, but if people perceive the community as a whole as not being safe, people aren't going to access those services. They're going to come in to this tiny area, do whatever it is they need to be done, and then exit and not really stay around. And what I learned is that there's an incredible amount of opportunity and growth and development, but I also see that with the university, there's a little bit more development needed to be done. Most of the conversations, I think, tend to steer toward youth, and so our conversation did the same thing. And one of the things that we talked about was with the university having such a large police department and all of the initiatives that they have, is there should be a movement to have like a community youth officer or someone who specializes in youth services, with the police responding with their visibility in schools and just in the community as a whole. They're coming across a lot more youth, and so how can we develop a better relationship with youth and then offer alternatives to juvenile sentencings and things like that. And I think that's about it. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Yes, it's still morning. I'm Steve Wiesenthal, University architect and head of facilities, and Danielle Castle was part of a team at the table talking about campus planning. And it did feel to me as we went around the table with introductions as if this team could very much, on an ongoing basis, help us all in designing and building and actually realizing some of the dreams on the campus. One thing we focused on, and then I want to turn it over to Danielle for what she heard and learned, but one thing we focused on is that as we are building a fair amount of buildings and also trying to enhance the landscapes, that a focus is to unite the campus more and to have it be more engaged in the public realm. So instead of the perception that there's a north campus and a south campus, how do we make it all more one campus, and then the interfaces with the surrounding neighborhood are more welcoming and open, and not just in concept and desire, but in physical reality, that they tell you that you're welcome there. One more point that I learned that I definitely want to take back and mull over as well is how do we make sure that we're not replicating on campus what would better be built in the neighborhoods to support both the neighborhoods and the campus community.
Hi, I'm Danielle Castle. I was at the campus planning table. I think Steve was a terrific facilitator, and it was really, really encouraging and great to get to hear about the facility services vision and his vision and the university's vision for campus planning. And one of the main things we did was go through graphics that all of you can see because they're at the facility services website. And we talked about various zones of engagement, and I was very encouraged, personally speaking, that the way Steve speaks about campus planning, it's not about university ownership, but really about university engagement. And he was very, very consistent in talking about not only in whether he was talking about building design, streetscape design, signage, programming of buildings. It was always consistently this theme of welcoming engagement and not feeling like a fortress. A couple specific aspects of the campus that we had some panel discussion about. We had several panelists were intrigued about mixed use and how to program the building that's immediately adjacent to Roby House. We talked a little bit about the lab school expansion and where that could be best accomplished. We talked about Doctors Hospital to some degree. We talked quite a bit about Ellis Street and 58th Street. And let's see what else. An interesting observation about the liveliness of the cafeteria and retail activities that are going on at the hospital, but they're occurring in the basement or on second floor and aren't engaged at a pedestrian level. And it really sounds like a main campus planning goal here for the university is to have more lively pedestrian street experiences. So, thank you.
Thank you. Those were great. It's amazing how much work went on here today. Marlon's thing about arrest warrants, so I kept thinking of those Super Bowl parties where everyone gets invited to a big room and surprise, you all leave in handcuffs. I don't think he's got that in mind today. I want to really quickly ask you all, if you could, before you leave, to give us some feedback on those survey forms so we know what you'd like to see next time we all get together. I also wanted to make sure to thank the people in my office who worked very hard to pull this off today, starting with Michelle Olson, who was the grand conductor of it all. And also Sonia Malunda and Susan Campbell and David Geyer. So thanks to them. And I don't know, seeing those little lights there, something put me in mind of this family holiday story, so you'll give me 1 minute to share this. Some years ago when my brother and his new bride, they just moved to South Florida from Michigan, and he was just starting a job and she was just starting nursing school, and they had no money and little time, and really for the first time in their lives they were not going to be in Michigan with their families for Christmas. And my sister-in-law, who yes is named Holly, was really sort of in mourning. It was a very hard time for her. And so my brother, surprising us all, got in his car one day and drove some distance to find perhaps the only ice rink in all of South Florida, and took a cooler out of the back of his car and sat in the rink and waited for the Zamboni guy to show up. And then asked the Zamboni guy, when you clean the ice, would you mind giving me the ice shavings, which he put in a cooler, drove back home, and when his wife walked in that night, late after nursing school classes, he had the tree lit and some Christmas music on, and this little mound of snow underneath the tree. And I love that story. It would surprise you if you ever met him. He's a hulking 6-something, and you wouldn't think that he was capable of something like this, which to me is always a story about two things, empathy and ingenuity. And I saw so much of that here today. I don't know why suddenly that story's in my head, but the incredible ability that this community has, even in its loudest arguments, to really empathize with others, despite the distances sometimes that occur between us, but also the amazing amount of creativity and ingenuity that I see at work here every day at the university and throughout these neighborhoods and this city. So thank you all for all of that. There are plenty of, I haven't used this word in 100 years, munchkins, those little donuts, back at the table, and hot chocolate and coffee and all of that. Thank you, and my very, very warmest wishes for a wonderful holiday season. See you next year.